Hello and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. My two guests today are Jenni Smith and Kay Walsh. If you're part of the quilting community, you will no doubt be familiar with their work. If you are new to Jenni and Kay, may I introduce to you two bold, bright, globe-trotting quilt makers and creators. An emerging theme for season 6 has been to find more joy. And Jenni and Kay show us how we can do just that. Don't mistake the gentle pursuit of sewing as a cozy at-home pastime, although it can be that. This is a reason to bring people together, to build community, to learn from one another, and yes, to even travel the world. So here they are. And stay tuned to find out how you too can ease through menopause with sewing. Kay and Jenni, it is such a pleasure to meet you, and I can't wait to hear about what you've been doing, how you got started, and everything that's coming up for you. To begin with, Would you like to say, each of you, a little bit about your background, maybe where you grew up, your family, and how you came into the land of sewing?
Yeah. Okay. Should I start?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Kay, and I grew up in Lancashire, actually. So we're in Yorkshire now. But I grew up in Lancashire and then went to university in London, spent many years down there, came back up north to Yorkshire when I was pregnant with my first, who is now 19. So I've got a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old. So one at uni, one doing A-levels.
Good luck.
Yes, exactly. Had the big year last year where we had the A-level GCSE double whammy, so that, at least that's out of the way. And so I kind of never really did much sewing when I was a kid. Had probably quite bad experiences at school of sewing and not really, I think I can only remember breaking a needle on the sewing machine in class, and that was kind of it. And then I'm not sure we were allowed near the machines again. So I kind of only really started sewing when I had my children, and I kind of wanted to do a little bit something different whilst I was at home with them. And then I met Jenni, and we met tap dancing, like you do.
Oh my gosh.
So we were at tap dancing class and we got chatting, and Jenni, I was like, I'm trying to do a bit of sewing. Jenni was like, well, I can teach you how to quilt.
Yeah.
So I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Yorkshire. I was born in Leeds and then lived in a small village called Coling with about 2,000 people, and a family business of building trailer tents and caravans, and women, my mum, my grandma and other people sewing the upholstery and things, for the interiors back in the 70s. So I feel like I just grew up with fabric and sewing around, but definitely as a like early, from being about 11 or 12, upcycling clothes from the dressing up box and making outfits and putting on fashion shows with my best friend Laura Sunter at the time. And then just always wanting to make my own clothes and that kind of thing. And then I've got 3 children. So when my eldest, who's almost 20, was just 1 year old, I went to live in Canada for a year with my husband, did a work fellowship there, and I had time out as a mum, enjoyed just being in the city and everything, but had times when Harry went to some childcare and I didn't know what to do with myself. And the first day I burst into tears, like, what am I going to do? As I dropped him off at the YMCA for an hour, and I walked into this quilting shop and saw all these fabrics, and these lovely ladies kind of took me under their wing and said, well, if you're English and they assumed I'd know how to quilt and things. It's a big part of their culture. So they took me under their wing, and I started making quilts, and obviously I just had a baby, so I could make him lovely, lovely quilts and clothes, and then haven't stopped since then. But when we came back to England, I started pestering everybody who would listen that they needed to learn how to sew in the playground, at tap dancing, and, gathered these women together, and that's how it's grown, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, and we started then, we had a group, didn't we? We used to meet like every week at someone's house, and with various children kind of around us, doing bits and pieces, didn't we? And then you started running some mum and baby classes, didn't you?
Yeah, I used to teach women to sew, dressmake, quilt, what have you, when their kids were little, so until they could move, really, for health and safety reasons. So they'd come and put the babies in the middle of the room in the car seats, and we had a disco ball and things, and then taught the women how to sew. And I knew from that point that it was massively important, I think, for people's mental health, because again, it's these big changes in life where your identity gets a little bit lost and everything becomes about the children, or, you know, you lose your confidence, I think, in other things, or you're scared to try something new. I kind of saw the value for those women, that they felt super proud they could make something for the baby or something for themselves. And that developed into us having a lovely busy studio here in Ilkley, you know, and teaching women of all ages, really, mainly women. We've had a few men, but like 99% women, and a lot of older women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've been we opened a studio of our own back in about 2016. So we had an in-person studio in our town, like Jenny said, and we taught lots of people, and then ended up pivoting kind of during lockdown, and we're mostly kind of online with a lot of stuff that we do now. But obviously, and then we've written the book. Well, we wrote a book in 2020 with Liberty of London, just about quilting. Then obviously this one is now about a bit of everything, all sewing. Yeah.
It's all amazing and such a heartwarming story and beautiful. And the fact that women often lose their identity when they have children completely resonates. I went from being, I suppose I identified with my job title, to mama, which is glorious.
You're someone's mum, aren't you?
That's it. Yeah. And I even remember going to a drinks party and saying to somebody, they asked me what I did, and I said, "Oh, I'm at home with my baby," and they turned around and walked away, which kind of summed up how I felt. So I thought, okay, never doing that again.
You feel like you don't even have a name anymore. I think at some point you are literally somebody's mum, and they don't even know what you're called. Sometimes you just Harry's mum, or what a name.
Exactly. And I feel that also does, or can occasionally happen in midlife, with yet more hormonal shifts, which we'll come on to in a moment. So kind of as a segue, whereabouts are both of you in terms of perimenopause or menopause currently?
Well, I'm 53, so although it's kind of tricky to know, I definitely started getting symptoms in my mid to late 40s, so was probably perimenopausal then. But because of, and I started taking HRT a good few years ago, and because of part of that is I've got a coil, I actually don't really know where I'm at in the kind of, whole proper menopause, have your period stopped. Don't really know, to be honest, but I definitely was in perimenopause in my kind of mid 40s, I think. It's definitely got to the point where it's like I could tick so many of those symptoms that, I remember I think I just ended up doing quite a bit of research thinking, why am I feeling like this? And then saw a list and there was just so many symptoms that, okay, I'm going to go to the doctors.
Yeah, and that filtered through to me because we work together every day, and
you're a bit younger, aren't you?
Yeah, so I've just turned 5, but you were really good at proactive reading books, listening to podcasts, going out to like information evenings and things, and I was just taking it in, thinking, yeah, okay. And then we had, a global pandemic in the mix, so I think it was really hard to know what you're feeling, but then definitely, she's the organised one. I'm creative, but like quite
carefree
and very, very relaxed. And I definitely had anxiety, and which felt really unusual. And again, I didn't clock it initially, but then I was like, okay, I'm worrying about really silly things, I suppose, or just that, that stage.
And it
didn't feel like myself at all. Then you were like, well, yeah, and you don't believe that will be a symptom. And I think it's quite frustrating when someone says, oh, you're not quite yourself, but like that's a really hard, it's like, it feels like quite personal and quite critical, but I didn't feel like myself.
Yeah, I think that happens to an awful lot of people, that they just don't feel like themselves. And that's one of the symptoms, but that's one of the most unsettling because you don't have a clear reason why.
No. So I think I'm, again, that was probably a good three or so years ago, and so I'm somewhere in the midst of perimenopause, I think, really, aren't I?
Yeah.
Got lots to look forward to. Dry, itchy skin. I mean, brain fog definitely, but and that it's been quite entertaining writing a book together and trying to remember what we're meant to be doing.
Which one? Yes.
It's quite ironic at times that we've laughed a lot at kind of, well, yeah, why can't we remember what we did yesterday?
And how did it show up for you then, Kay? What drove you to see the doctor and try out HRT?
I think, like I said, lots of kind of little symptoms. Like, I've never had like the classic, hot flush, which I think is the thing that everyone thought menopause was, isn't it, back in the day? That's probably one of the only symptoms I've never had. Sleep, like, my sleep is quite bad. I'd say it's still probably one of the things that I haven't quite got on top of. I think I kind of had like the rage and the weird crying about nothing, literally sitting in the car going, I don't know why I'm crying, but I am. And now I'm really cross at everybody. And yeah, my skin changed definitely. And, started to get bits of eczema that I've never had in my entire life. So lots of those kind of not smaller, they're just the things that I was like, okay, night sweats, all that kind of stuff, I think really were the things that made me think, okay, this is not right. So I don't normally feel all of these things.
You're not an angry person.
Not angry, no, at all. Like, yeah, again, I'm quite laid back, I think, generally. But I definitely had that, real rage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just really cross at everybody.
Jenny, you will not believe what's happened on a daily basis. Let's do some sewing and talk.
Exactly.
So what do you feel has helped you other than sewing? Because I'm desperate to get onto that as well. Have you, obviously, Kay, you've taken HRT as part of your way to look after yourself.
Yeah.
What else have you added in? And Jenny, how are you navigating it so far?
I think, and I'm a bit bad at going up and down with this, and then you're better at this. Exercise definitely does help. And I know I feel better when I get out for a walk, for example, bit of fresh air, or also I think things for me like, doing things that I know I like sewing, like reading, like whatever, not kind of getting stuck in that, which I think we're all guilty of, just, being on your phone or whatever it might be, because I think, again, that makes you feel worse, doesn't it? So trying to set up, I suppose, some sort of routines that are things that you like and make you feel a bit better is good, isn't it? And you've definitely you're more on it with that, aren't you? With your exercise.
But I've been on HRT for 2 years, and I felt like, yes, for me personally, that anxiety definitely almost went away, really, I would say. You've got your general worries about things and kids and parents and all the rest.
Yes.
That just, the edge totally went off that, and I wouldn't say that I feel like that. I've actually just gone up, so I was like on the combi, and I've just had a review after 2 years and trying a bit of a go up a little bit, because again I felt like that's maybe just creeping back in a little bit. And yeah, exercise for me, which I would have done a little bit of, but I've never been set into a routine. And then I did join the local gym where there's yoga and there's spinning, and I've just managed, I think partly as well because my youngest has made that transition from primary school to secondary school, so I'm not on the school run anymore, so I can get up in the morning and I can go and exercise, and then we can start our working day. And I think just generally for me, I think I'm easier to work with because I've got a lot of energy. I think it kind of gets it out of my system a little bit.
The only problem is, I have to say, she then goes in the sauna and comes up with 20 million new ideas.
Wow.
About what we need to do.
Saunas. Now, I don't know if that's good for menopause, but I know it feels like I love it. I drink lots of water. A bit of social interaction again. Like we work in a studio in my house, there's the two of us, so I think socializing is good.
Yes.
And then we've found, since we've been starting to talk to people about writing the book, I think just having conversations,
Definitely.
I think feeling like you're in control of this thing and that it can be a positive. There are symptoms, but equally it can be quite a nice empowering stage in your life if you lean into it. That's helping, isn't it? Because we feel like people are coming to us, and the more you talk or don't feel like you're crazy, that helps.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. And I think the sauna, if it relaxes you and releases all your sort of creative ideas, then it's definitely going to be good for you. Anything that is stress management and brings you joy, if you love it, then that in itself is a good thing as well. And post exercise, you're getting all the benefits. I just think that's wonderful. But community, yes, 100%, which is one of the things that drew me instantly to your story, because the idea of bringing women together, which you already have in many different ways, obviously, but particularly at this point in life when we can often, certainly with anxiety, feel like we want to isolate ourselves or need to step back, bringing us back into the fold and supporting one another is just such a joy. How did you go about approaching menopausal women in particular?
I think it kind of came just because it was such a big part of our lives. We realised we were talking about it all the time in one way or another, symptoms or just how we were feeling. And then the more you talk about it, the more you realise everyone else is, like you say, having these feelings. Or, the number of people that I spoke to, friends who are like, oh, I'm not feeling great, and I've been to the doctors and they think I'm depressed. And and we know now that this is a misconception, that many women have probably been wrongly diagnosed with depression, because it does appear as a kind of symptom. You might feel like you've got low mood or whatever.
Absolutely.
It is, but it's not depression, it's menopause. So I think having those kind of conversations, which we realised so many people were of our friends or people that we were teaching and were feeling all these things, and like you say, just getting that out there and talking to people has just been the best thing, hasn't it?
Yeah, and we go to quite a lot of sewing shows and events, and that is our world, I suppose. Yeah. So it felt like people were talking about it, but there wasn't a book, there wasn't anything specifically geared to that. As well as the mission, I suppose, is what we've always wanted to get people into sewing, and there does usually need to be a catalyst, because people are scared, of learning a new skill and doing it wrong, or having enough time to do it and that kind of things. It just seemed to click. Like one day we sat, we talked about, oh, that quilt would be good for menopause because it's floaty light, that jacket would be nice. And then we were like, actually, from all our experience and what have you, could we put a book together? And within half an hour, we'd written up all the projects. We're like, then we could include that because of this and that. And we pitched it to Search Press. And again, within a week, it said, yes, let's do it. And then we did it all quite quickly, because it felt like, I think you probably, when when it's your reality every day and it feels like it's a good way, if you can create a bit more of a movement. We were just excited, weren't we? So then we were like, right, let's get designing and sewing, and we just did it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Amongst everything else, really.
Yeah, because I think these are our people, the sewing people, that's who we hang out with there, who we're trying to kind of communicate with all the time. And then because we realised, well, actually, many of them are similar age to us, so at a similar stage of life. Or if not, hopefully, maybe they've got mums or aunties or whatever, if they're younger people, or, then, we just thought, well, I think twofold. We want people to sew because we know it's a wonderful skill and it can bring so many benefits. And if we can talk about the menopause as well at the same time, then brilliant.
Because that's what happens in reality. You're sewing and you're busy with your hands and you feel like they're good endorphins, but again, it's like at the gym and stuff, you can't sit on your spin bike and have those kind of conversations. Speak. Whereas we know that when you sat and you're making something and your hands feel busy, your head you can feel a lot freer, can't you?
Yeah, we've had the best conversations in the studio.
And and people will share things, and often it is quite different women backgrounds that you wouldn't necessarily end up in a room with the people we've met through stitching over the years, but you have that commonality because you're making something and you love that, but then also you can speak and you can get a lot of different perspectives, because I think often in your friendship groups sometimes as well, you're not always seeing those outside views or different perspectives, are you? That's interesting.
And getting the creativity back into your life, because I feel I am intrinsically creative.
Yeah.
But what do I do that's creative? I've had to bring that back into my life, definitely. Otherwise, midlife is full of obligations, none of which are necessarily bad, but it just doesn't give you so much space. So then being able to bring that back, and then, like you said, that accesses different parts of your brain. So then you're feeling more fluid and yourself. And then you have that sense of accomplishment when you've actually made something is wonderful. So with all of that, do you feel as well that younger people are getting involved? I mean, my youngest is 13 and she loves to crochet, which when she started it,
as well.
I was quite taken aback because that was my grandmother's sort of domain.
Yeah.
And all I do is, in terms of sewing, is maybe sew on some buttons that have fallen off and repair a few things. Not creative in that way at all, but massively appreciative of the people who are. So is it a sort of transgenerational thing? And then with menopause, obviously there is that focus, but are you able to bring the younger generation in so they're able to learn about it as well and prepare, as well as all the other benefits?
Yeah, I think if your children see you or people around in your family see you making and see the value in that and what it gives you, then that can only help but inspire, the younger generation to think, okay, that's great, and see you actively taking time out to do something that you enjoy. Like a lot of people say, oh, I'm selfish sewing, or I think it was a hashtag at one point, and we're like, it's not. It's the very opposite of that. Men go off and play golf and stuff, and they don't say, I'm going off to play selfish golf this afternoon, selfish cricket for 6 hours.
Yeah.
So I think we're quite proud that our children really respect what we do, and they're excited when we've come in, we've made a new jacket. They might be like, oh, you look a bit quirky. Well, my daughter would be, oh, you're a bit quirky, Mum, in that jacket. But I think deep down, they know that it's care, and it's also, it's upcycling.
Well, I think I think youngsters are really getting into that, aren't they? Upcycling's such a big thing.
Yes, definitely.
More, I think the young ones, the younger generation are more aware of environmental factors and things like that than maybe our generation has been. So I think you do see the kind of younger sewers coming through, I think, don't you? We definitely want, okay, we've written this book and it's about menopause, but yeah, like we say, definitely we want as many people to get sewing as possible, and I think that it is happening, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
with things like upcycling and stuff is a good way in, isn't it?
Able to what's important for whoever does it is that you can put your own personality and stamp on something if you make it yourself. You can see a fabric or have a fabric that has personal significance to you, and you can transform it into something else. And that in itself is a pretty amazing thing, isn't it? Or you can think, oh, my mum loves so-and-so, I'll find a fabric with that printed on it, which you can probably find now, and then you can make something, and it does give you a real sense of pride.
Yeah, like you say, I think we've said that so many times. There's no better feeling than going, I've made that myself with my own hands, and look, it's a thing and it exists. And if it's either for you or as a gift to someone, and people love getting a gift that you've put your time and your love into, don't they, as well? Hopefully that's a really nice thing as well. And that's quite a few of the projects in the book, we're like, well, this would make a good gift for whatever, or, whoever it might be. But yeah, definitely young people getting, having the knowledge as well of like, okay, maybe, I've talked to my kids about menopause, and hopefully then they understand. And equally, we've had people who've read the book and gone, oh, I really want my husband to read this, or my partner, or whoever, because of the factual stuff that's in there. And yeah, of course, we want the men to understand how we're feeling as well, because you have to live together.
Yeah.
100%.
I think everybody should know about it, because if you're not going through it, then somebody who is or will or has, whether you're married to them or they're a child of yours or a neighbour, a colleague, whoever it is, somebody for sure. And you've made me think, actually, with the upcycling, both of mine love to shop in charity shops and second-hand shops. And actually, I used to do that and adapted a couple of my favourite dresses when I was about 17 and made them into something that felt just a bit more modern Yeah, I'd forgotten about that,
Yeah,
but that was a joy.
You, like when you said that you're not creative in that way, and I think I would always have said that, and it wasn't until I think we tell ourselves that we're not, or that you might be, not creative at all. Loads of people tell themselves that. Like me, they might have had a bad experience at school with a bit of sewing and not done anything else. But I think we've all got it in there. We all used to draw and colour and stuff when we were kids, and then you just stop doing it, don't you, I think? Or it's not your thing and you find something else that you love. But I think we've all got that ability to be creative. Or I kind of thought, well, I can follow a pattern, I can read. Like cooking, if you can follow the recipe, you can probably cook. I think, again, if you've got a pattern to follow for some sewing or quilting or whatever, you're probably going to be fine, aren't you? And then you find your creativity.
See, already you've scared me with the word pattern. I'm thinking that's so far out of my realm. So for somebody like me who just goes, that's too complicated, how would you say to begin and just get stuck in?
Well, I think that is the thing. Don't be scared, because, and the way we've written the book, there are we start off with an eye mask, because I kind of thought one, I made one for you, didn't I, a few years ago?
Yeah.
Because it was just a nice thing to make. I now can't sleep with mine. I have to have it without it. I have to have it. Without it. I have to have it every night. And it just really helps, I think, to just kind of, well, we said you can't scroll on your phone if you've got an eye mask on, can you? Like, that's good. That's a tick. And I think having that real darkness definitely helps me.
But people you see, and the kind of the construction of the eye mask is really similar to a face mask. And lots of people made face masks and bought sewing machines in lockdown because they needed them, and you could make pretty ones or what have you. So that was we were like, this is the way in. If we start with something that's similar in construction but is functional and useful, and would take an hour or so to make, and that's all it needs is like these quicker projects to complete and build your confidence, and then you can take it from there. So I think, your daughters thought, I want to do something with crochet. They'll watch a video, they'll read about it, they'll do it. And why don't adults, why don't we do that? They just embrace it, don't they? They love teaching kids to sew because they're like, oh, okay, yeah, and I'll have a go. But we just get scared of the failure. But then in sewing, you just unpick it, or you're talking about, pounds worth of fabric probably for those early projects. So even if that goes wrong, you will learn a lot from doing that. And then you'll move on, and no work's wasted, is it? Everything informs the next thing. We have also created a full website, and we've filmed video tutorials of every single project. So the first one for the eye mask is at no cost, and then the others, there will be a fee that goes with them, but they're like full video tutorials of us doing it and explaining everything. Because I think also we know from experience that some people are real visual learners, or need that to know they can go back and watch that again and again and again and get through it. And we've kind of done that over the years with our dressmaking patterns and things, that there's been accompanying videos. So we've kind of tried to make it
as easy as possible
as everything.
Yeah, because when we say pattern, it's just following numbers. Number 1, do this, and then number 2, do that. And that's what all of the projects are like. So it's an absolute step by step. Do this and then do this.
Garments with no zips or buttonholes or things, we kind of know from experience what are the things that might get beginner sewists. Yeah, like a little bit too scared, and we've not included that.
That can be for the next book, the sort of mid-menopause, post-menopause. Yeah, we can work our way through.
And then when we're older, it'll be like geriatric nicks or something, like things for our Zimmer frames. Or, keep going with us as we're not going to stop sewing now.
There must be a huge amount of joy, clearly, in your studio and with your circles and with the creation of the book as well. So how do you continue to bring the joy? I mean, obviously it's just your characters and your natures as well, but how do you continue to build upon that?
Well, I think what we really want is for, hopefully when people get the book and they make things, that they share it with us. So, like Jenny said, we have a website, Instagram, whatever, and we'd love to see what people are making. if we can't see people in real life, then we can virtually see what people are up to. But we do also, every year we're at Festival of Quilts, which takes place in Birmingham in the summer. And that's really nice as well, because we get to actually see people who we kind of maybe online chat with through the year.
Yeah, we're going to the Stitch Festival.
Going to Stitch Festival. Yeah, so there'll be a few kind of like sewing things like that as well, where hopefully people will come chat with us.
But I think people will make friends, probably. Like, even like there's some fantastic communities online, and more people sew than you think. Like, once you start, again, it's like menopause. Once you start talking about it, you will find your tribe.
Right.
Once you start talking that you're interested in sewing, or that you're doing a little bit of it, communities come together, and we see it time and time again. And then if you can have those online connections, or in real life as well, there might be generations in your family even, that would love to then share that knowledge with you. So if you can open up those doors, then because really writing the book it's fun. We had a nice time doing it, but really when it hasn't even started yet for us, in that once it gets out into the world, and then it's what people bring to it. People will make much more exciting and interesting projects than we do, I'm sure, and bring their own stories and their own personalities. And for us, I think that's when it gets super interesting, isn't it? Because then they'll tell you the little story of why they've done it and how they felt. That's just
the best.
Yeah, that's the fuel. I think that's where the actual joy comes from, isn't it?
So the book is out in the middle of March. And then what next? What other projects have you got planned?
Well, we have quite another interesting day job, don't we? In that we work with a company called Quilt, and that's it started out as a quarterly magazine in the US, where they go to a different state each quarter and tell the stories of quilting and the people that do it, and not people necessarily in the public eye, just the folk, everyday people.
Wonderfully.
About 4 years ago now, we started working with them to do more quilting education, online workshops and storytelling, didn't we? So
we end up, we've travelled quite to many places actually, from, a place in the UK, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, as far as Hawaii, the Netherlands, France. So we go to a place and we meet some quilters and find out their stories, and then make a workshop from it. And so we always teach them something, but also give a bit of history of maybe quilting in that place, or what some particular quilters are up to. So we are travelling a fair little bit, aren't we? And producing these online workshops as well. So that also keeps us busy.
One day I'd like to get an old library van, the library buses that used to work, because I lived in quite a small village. It's like we could have like a Menopause makes library van bus, and then we could drive around.
That's a brilliant idea. And then you could
people on the street and get them sewing.
Yeah.
Yes.
We love people. That's the thing. And that everything that we do, that, like Jenny said, that's the joy for us, is getting somebody else sewing and seeing the joy it brings to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes us feel really happy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Apparently they come up on eBay now and again, but I've obviously got a starter idea that I haven't been allowed to follow through just yet. But maybe. I mean, we're going to be in this phase of life for
a while. Yeah.
For a while. We're not in any rush. I think also we just want to enjoy, again, having the book out there and see what opportunities arise, meeting you, and you don't know, do you, what's going to happen, really. So I think that's just really exciting for us, and meeting, spreading into other worlds, possibly, how other women get creative.
Mm-hmm.
It won't just be sewing, will it? There'll be so many other avenues, I think.
Yeah, and that's it. I think that's been the joy as well of us going to all these places, is that we keep meeting these extraordinary women who, and quite often actually they're older than us, aren't they? Which is so inspirational, that these women are still, they're inquisitive, they want to know about the world, and they're kind of still creating things, whatever it might be. It's just brilliant, isn't it?
Well, I think that's all part of, yes, we reach menopause, and don't you dare write us off yet. We've got plenty of experience to share, and it sounds like knowledge in all sorts of realms as well. We know ourselves better. And actually the idea of role modeling for other people as well. Self-care by allowing your creativity, by taking some time to be with other people, to share ideas, community. I mean, there's so much that is only good in what you're doing. I just absolutely love it. And Hawaii. I mean, bonus.
Weirdly, there is a very incredible quilting tradition there. We didn't just make it up that we had to go to Hawaii.
Nice find.
Have you kept like your children's clothes or anything? I'm thinking I've got to get Hat to do it. So have you kept things? Or
I've kept a few select things. Yes.
So maybe you have to make a quilt one day with, if you've kept them, you know, like, because you could make a beautiful patchwork and then it really is like
they're amazing. Yeah,
something like that.
That's
nice.
A lovely idea. Yes, really lovely. But I have to start small. Eye mask, brilliant. Quilt, a little bit more ambitious, but it all sounds really wonderful. So to wrap up, what would, from each of you, be your one pearl of wisdom from perimenopause so far?
Pearl of wisdom.
I think we thought about this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think you're stronger than you think you are. And to just kind of, I think, you know, even if you get on HRT or whatever it might be, it's not a kind of stagnant thing. It's probably going to change all the time. So, you know, go back to your GP and kind of, you'll come through it. And I think, like you say, when you listen to a lot of older women, I think that's what's really great, is when you see they're out the other side and they go, I feel better than I've ever felt. And I feel stronger than I've ever felt. And, you know, I know who I am, like you said, and this is who I am. And I'm going to carry on doing whatever it is I want to do. I think keep that in your mind.
Yeah. And I think you're only ever a day away from getting back on track or where you think you want to be. So I think if you have a rubbishy weekend where you just feel like you've got no energy, you've been really grumpy and miserable, like, that doesn't have to then define you for the next week or the next week or the next week. Or you've got out of the habit of going to the gym, or, you know, all those kind of things. It only takes a day, doesn't it, to think, okay, let's reset. And, you know, again, or if you want to do some creativity, right, I'm really going to just carve out that time and do it. And once you've made that decision, I think it just takes away, like, give yourself grace and be quite forgiving to yourself. I think is the same with learning a new skill. Just give yourself
be
grace.
Nice to yourself. Yeah, I think we're constantly telling people this. Like you say, people they're worried about doing it wrong. There's no wrong. It's just, you know, you learn, like you say, you learn from all your mistakes. That's how we learn, and we get worried about it, don't we? Don't be worried about it. Like I say, it's just a bit of fabric, probably, that you can either decide to put to one side or unpick some stitches and it'll be fine. And that's the worst that's going to happen.
Best case scenario is you'll be right pleased with yourself.
Well, that is so lovely, and all super valuable points. So thank you very much. Finally, where can people find you?
On Instagram,
Jenni and Kay Create is the best one. And then we've set up a Menopause Makes Instagram, which we want to build once the book's out. But that will be linked from our main account, menopausemakes.com, the website, where there's the video instructions, people can get the book, there's a direct contact form on there so people can message us directly. They're the best place to start, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. And yes, release date is March the 15th?
14th?
Yes.
And it's World Quilting Day on March 15th. And International Women's Day, obviously, at the beginning of March. So it seems like a good time.
I think that's fantastic. That all rolls into one beautifully. Thank you so much, both of you, for bringing amazing energy, for all that you're doing, and for your time today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. You can find Jenni and Kay on Jenni and Kay Create on Instagram, and Menopause Makes is indeed out on March the 14th, 2025. The book is just wonderful, with designs for practical and beautiful accessories for menopause symptoms. It's a truly creative and brilliant idea. I also have some big news brewing, so keep up to date with Real Menopause Talk on Instagram, and you can always reach me if you need menopause support on Hattie, which is HATTY, at realmenopausetalk.com. Menopause coaching, menopause support, or even general discussion. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.